this? Excellent. So I'll say hello again. Thank you for joining us. My name's Sydney Morgan. I'm one of our NETA board members here, and I work at Simmons University, and we're really excited to welcome you all today to our lunchtime webinar on early college and dual enrollment. I'm going to have my colleague Evan introduce himself, say a couple of things, and then we'll dive into the webinar and some logistics.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday to everyone. Just wanted to welcome everybody to the webinar. My name is Evan Desatnick. I'm the president of the New England Transfer Association. I also work at Massasoit Community College as the Associate Director of Transfer Affairs. So super excited to see so many people have joined us today and will be joining us. And just wanted to give you a quick heads up about our conference coming up in April. We're going to be in Burlington, Vermont from the 22nd to the 24th. If folks come on the 21st at night, we also are going to have an evening out. We'll do some exploring of Burlington. So really looking forward to engaging with everybody in the transfer space coming today and also in the near future. So thank you very much. Welcome.
Awesome. So a couple logistics for those of you just joining us. We ask that you make sure you're muting your video and your audio. We want to make sure our presenters, who I will let introduce in a moment, are the only ones we have video and audio for, just so that we can make sure we're hearing them. And the way that this is going to work is I'm going to welcome all of our lovely presenters, ask them to introduce themselves, and this is going to be a guided Q&A. A lot of you submitted some excellent questions to us beforehand about your interest in this topic. So we're going to walk through some of those questions, but we of course want to take additional questions. So what I ask you to do is if you have questions throughout, you can type them in our chat box. So what we'll do is we'll go through the moderated questions and then in the chat box, type those questions in, and then at the end we will go through those as a group. So welcome again, and I'll go ahead and let our panelists introduce themselves.
Okay, I'll go first. Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Slavin. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Enrollment Management here at MassBay Community College. Been at MassBay for almost 5 years now. Previous to MassBay, I spent many years at Wheelock College, and before that I was at Bentley doing both admissions and financial aid and enrollment work. In regards to dual enrollment in early college, my role here at MassBay, I am the Commonwealth Dual Enrollment Program, CDEP. You probably know that or don't, and we'll talk about it. So I'm the CDEP grant coordinator here at MassBay. I've also been very fortunate to be part of the team that put together the early college designation grant for the state, and so we are one of the few colleges and programs in the state of Massachusetts that now have early college designation. So I'm thrilled to be here, excited for this conversation and all of your questions.
I'll go next. Is there feedback on your end, or is that just on my end? Okay. My name is Jillian Freitas-Haley. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions here at Middlesex Community College. I have been here about 12 years, and in that time, dual enrollment and early college has looked very different from year to year, but now we are really excited to be able to say that we are also an early college designation school, but we also offer traditional dual enrollment, and we've been teaching concurrent enrollment courses at local high schools for many years. So we are in the process of transitioning to early college for some of our schools. Our role in the admissions area is really to work in tandem with my colleagues in our K through 16 partnerships office to bring students in through our admissions process and to offer some really beneficial and concise advising in that preparation for early college or dual enrollment, depending on where the student is in their cycle. So just excited to be here.
My name's Amanda Gaeb. I'm the admissions counselor here at White Mountains Community College. I might be the northernmost person on the call right now. I'm the admissions counselor, so I work with students who are applying and getting accepted. Before I worked here, which has been for 2.5 years, I was a teacher in a high school in the area, so I know more about our dual enrollment. We call it Running Start. We have our instructors who teach within the high schools, and then we also do early college where students actually either do online classes or come to one of our locations, and it's all 7 of the community colleges in New Hampshire do the Running Start program. So we work with students whether they are doing classes in high school specifically to go towards a specific program or just to get a lot of gen eds out of the way. to either come here to White Mountains Community College, to come to one of the other community colleges, or to transfer those grades and classes onto a four-year university. And in that regard, I'm also the transfer counselor for White Mountains Community College, and I work with the four-year universities and colleges in New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, and a little bit in Massachusetts too.
All right. Hi everyone, I'm Jenna. I'm the resource specialist for Gateway to College at Quinsigamond Community College in Massachusetts. Gateway is a national program, so we have, I think, about like 45 programs in 43 states. Massachusetts has like 9 Gateway programs. They're quite a bit consolidated in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. So some of you guys may have worked with Gateway students before. We're a kind of a niche program. We work with students that have dropped out of high school or are behind in credits that they need for graduation. We bring them on campus. We offer a lot of support services. My position is sort of a hybrid between college advisor and high school guidance counselor. We offer cohorted classes so the students stay together the whole time they're in the program, and then graduate with their high school diploma and a bunch of college credits at the end.
Awesome. This is Sydney speaking again. I'm going to pop my video on. Great. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. For anyone that joined us late, just to let you know, feel free to type any questions that you have into the chat box. This will be a moderated Q&A. I have a lot of pre-selected questions we'll run through with the panelists, but we'll get to your questions near the end. So the first question I want to bring to you all is, it's a pretty big, broad question, but how do you help support students in your programs? And kind of the secondary question is, what are the departments that you partner with, whether it's at your current institution or at high schools?
I feel like I can speak to that. Gateway offers a lot of support services. We're a small program, so I have the opportunity to meet with my students really frequently, at least once a week, all students in the program the whole time. So we're meeting with them really frequently. We offer a study hall that we offer just for high school credit. So students are actually in a computer lab at least twice a week doing their homework, which is really helpful for our population. The cohort classes are taught by professors that volunteer to teach Gateway students and kind of know the challenges that our students have. In terms of other departments, we work pretty closely with our disability services department. A lot of our students have pretty significant mental health challenges, so we're working with kind of accommodations around a lot of anxiety and depression. We work closely with our counseling team, who is a one-woman team, but she's very wonderful. And also closely with admissions to get the students matriculated to QCC for after they graduate. So we try to make that process as seamless as possible. And lastly, I work really closely with our transfer counselor, Beth. We've developed a special workshop for dual enrollment students, which is college admissions for dual enrollment students, which kind of takes them through some of the unique aspects of applying to colleges when you have dual enrollment credit.
Thank you. Would others like to chime in?
Go ahead, Jill.
Thanks, Lisa. So I think it's important, and I think we're going to talk about this a little later, but our programs really wouldn't be where they are if our faculty weren't heavily involved. They assist with designing curriculum through early college and aligning the curriculum. They're very actively involved in supporting students in the classroom, making sure that they're connecting them with the right resources. So I just wanted to mention that. And then also, and I'm sure many of them are on this call, our wonderful transfer counselors and our academic advisors are working very closely with these students to have the conversations that we're talking about now. How are you doing in your class? What resource can I connect you to? So our students are assigned a specific advisor in the advising center who work with dual enrollment students. So it's really more that wraparound support model. But from an admissions perspective, we're doing a lot of referring, as Jenna was saying, to our disability support services staff. We also see a high number of our dual enrollment students coming in with some need, whether it's a learning need or a mental health need. So we do highlight that during some of our onboarding processes, information sessions. Dual enrollment students who are coming to Middlesex are required to go to an information session during the application process, and we do a lot of discussion about support services during that time.
And I'll just add to what Jillian and Jenna said, that, you know, they are our students. They're non-degree students, but they're in our program, so they have access to all of the services that we have. So that's first and foremost. I agree the faculty are really important. It's important that we hire the best faculty to work with the high school students or the dual enrollment students. And then also, Jillian mentioned onboarding. I think that all of us who have successful programs, the orientation piece to this is really important, because it's reminding the high schools and the high school students that, you know, you're taking this course or set of courses, and when you're in that classroom, whether it's on their high school campus or on our campus, you're now a college student. And what does that mean? And our goal is for them to be successful. And so we walk them through all the resources that they have, all the expectations, but really making sure that they know that we have resources and our goal is for them to be successful. But at the same time, we have expectations at the college level, and there's going to be rigor, and there's going to be, you know, a lot of work that's involved in it. And so that might freak out a couple of the students initially, but at the same time, it's all about setting them up for success.
For us, Chrissy Grant is the coordinator for educational partnerships and access. She actually goes to each high school that does the Running Start program in early college with us. She meets with all of the students. She meets with their parents. Our director of the library, Melissa LaPlante, she actually goes to the schools as well and talks to the students about how to use MLA, how to use APA, how to use the library even while they're still in high school, whether it's our library or it's the library at their schools, so that we can get as much information to them as possible. And then they're all welcome to use our Academic Success Center, which is a combination of our accessibilities coordinator and also our tutoring services and general counseling.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. That's really helpful. So my next question, I know a lot of you work kind of on the admission side or the recruiting side. What have you found the most successful ways in promoting your programs and making sure that people are aware that these are options?
So I'd love to go first. I think MassBay is unique that we have a center, a joint center with MassBay and Framingham State. It's called the College Planning Collaborative. It's grant funded. It's been around for almost 6 years now. So we have this extra layer in the community outside of the high schools that helps us build this pipeline. So that's huge and helpful. And they're a big part of the early college program that's going to be happening at the high schools within Framingham High School and Milford High School. So College Planning Center is really taking ownership and helping recruit for that program, which is great. In terms of the CDEP program that we have, the Commonwealth Dual Enrollment Program, it's all about relationships and partnerships. So it's about the relationships that we have with the high schools and with the community-based organizations. And so I've been here for 5 years. I've been working very closely with our main feeder schools, which are Framingham High School, Keith-Beck, and Natick. But each year I have more and more schools that want to join, which is great. So that's a word of mouth. They're hearing about how successful the program is, and they're hearing about the opportunities for their students. These, in our case at MassBay, it's free courses. So parents are getting, you know, this information. They're like, wait a minute, how do I get in on this? We have a great relationship with our community-based partners, so they do marketing for us all the time. We definitely use social media, and I do think the media and newspapers in our area, whenever we have news releases around dual enrollment opportunities, we put it out there, and it really actually helps increase the applications.
Everything Lisa said. And I'll just add to that we work, again, very closely with our Dean for K through 16 partnerships. She's out there pounding the pavement just as much as we are. So oftentimes there's a parent night or a coffee at a high school, and she will be the one representing early college or dual enrollment or whatever school that is. We work it into every open house event, every recruiting event that we are participating in. We're going to talk about the benefits of dual enrollment. We are currently teaching in over 20 area high schools as it is. So the word of mouth from that is really critical. Just as Lisa was saying, the parents, and they're talking to each other, or they might have an older sibling and now they want the younger sibling to go through the same experience and get the same benefit. We do a ton of marketing. We do a lot of feature stories on our dual enrollment students who are often incredibly successful and have really unique stories to talk about. We have students who are, you know, full-time musicians, and they're doing other things with their lives, and they're really taking dual enrollment at its heart and using that to further themselves. So we do all of those things. I don't know that necessarily we're doing something that is so different, because I think we're all being really creative and using dual enrollment as a way to really market community college as the first choice when students are going through the college selection process.
Yeah, I agree. We do a lot of the same boots on the ground, a lot of talking to the different schools, all of us in the admissions office, Chrissy, academic affairs, everybody is going out and talking. And again, like you said, Jillian, the students who've had siblings or even the parents who have had people in their families who've done it before, it's a lot of word of mouth. In New Hampshire, the governor has created created a scholarship where students can take 2 Running Start classes for free. It's STEM, but STEAM as well. So STEAM as well as STEM. So that gets a lot of students. And then there are some high schools who actually have really incorporated Running Start and early college into their own curriculum, that they cover the costs for a lot of the classes. So it's really just getting the information out there and being as open to people wanting us to come for various events and little talks to get more information out.
And actually, I want to chime in because that leads me really nicely into our next question here. And some of you have already touched on how essential faculty are in supporting and creating these partnerships. Could we have you speak a little bit more on how high schools and community colleges work together for curricular alignment?
So at Middlesex, the courses that are being taught in the high schools are each discipline is assigned a Middlesex mentor. So that person is guiding the instructor through the curriculum and the alignment, and that work has all been done before the students land in the classroom. And then they also have access to that person throughout the year or semester, and you know, anything that comes up that they need assistance with, they'll come to us and ask. So it works really well.
I could just speak on for a couple different, we have a couple different grants. So when we talk about early college, it's this huge umbrella. So I'll always say, you're talking about dual enrollment, are you talking about early college, are you talking about concurrent? But I can say I agree with Jillian, faculty are essential. So with the early college model that we're doing, that's going to start this year, we actually just recruited a whole bunch of 8th graders that will start next year in 9th grade. Framingham High School in Milford. The faculty were essential, and we're actually going to do the co-teaching model. So it's going to have a high school faculty member and a college faculty member in the classroom. So they actually have to work on their curriculum together to develop new curriculum to make sure that it's satisfying the graduation requirements for both the high school, but also meets the criteria for the college level course.
And Lisa, I actually want to interrupt because you brought up a good point for me. And I know you've all touched on this, but would you feel comfortable providing a brief definition of the distinctions between those programs? I know you talked, but just so we have that would be really helpful.
Sure. I am going to rely on these ladies to help me. So there's this big umbrella, and I think we can agree, you know, early college. So what does early college mean? And so I'll speak specifically to MassBay, but I know the other schools can give their variations. But here we have a couple things. We have what I call traditional dual enrollment. So traditional dual enrollment is a student that might come in through the admissions process. They're either a homeschool student or a student who just wants to take some courses, but they're in agreement with their high school, and the high school is giving them permission to come to MassBay during the day or night or whatever it is, and to take some courses. And we have an application for that. It's on our website, and they work directly with our admissions office. And so those students are paying the same rates. They're taking the classes on our campus or online, depending. And so in many cases, they're just on the roster. They're not noted any differently. They're a non-degree student, but we have them coded as dual enrollment. And so like Jillian said, how some of the dual enrollment students have their own advisors, those traditional dual enrollment students on our campus, they're going to be working closely with admissions. Commonwealth dual enrollment students, that's a CDEP program. So CDEP for us, the way it works at MassBay is I partner specifically with high schools. And I chose that model based on our resources and size and the grant itself. It's not a huge grant, but it's really helpful. So I partner with what I call our partnership high school. So that's only for a certain set of high schools. In the past, those students, I have transported them to our campus to take courses here. And they are usually in a cohort by themselves. So it's just a whole bunch of dual enrollment students, high school students with a MassBay faculty member. This year for that grant, due to some construction on one of our campuses, we're actually teaching the dual enrollment, the CDEP courses, the free CDEP courses at the high schools in the afternoon. So the students end at 2 o'clock. They're sitting in for their Law and Society class Mondays and Wednesdays from 2:15 to 4, taught by a MassBay faculty member. The early college model, the early college designation model that we have, that's in the high school. So these students never have to leave the high school. They're going to be taking courses. So when their normal English class would occur, if they're taking a English class that's designated college course, it's going to happen during their regular time. Part of that grant, there are a lot of resources. We are hiring we have a program coordinator. We work closely with the district and with the college to make sure that we're meeting the correct number of contact hours for the college, but we're also satisfying the graduation requirements for the high school. So a lot of coordination goes into the model when the students are taking the courses during the day.
And I'll say our
Thank you. Yeah,
process is, sorry.
I was just saying, please chime in, and you are.
Yes.
Our process is almost like MassBay with some exceptions. We started concurrent enrollment teaching in the high school years ago and have been able to sort of model that into early college for the schools that have now been designated early college. The CDEP process goes through K through 16 partnerships. We don't handle that in admissions, but every student that touches dual enrollment in any way is under that umbrella, does get processed through my office so that we can verify that their paperwork is all ready to go, that they're not already in the system. So we take care of that, but we're not necessarily working with each and every individual early college or concurrent enrollment student on an individual basis. That's happening at the high school. The students that are here in traditional, what Lisa was calling traditional dual enrollment on campus, very large homeschool population, that has really taken off in this area for us, and are some of our most successful students. And they are, as I mentioned before, assigned academic advisors to help them through that academic planning, transfer, optional process. And then we do have a tuition discount for our dual enrollment students. So in addition to CDEP funding, they are getting some discounted rates as well. So it's been a really great way to bring students in. Again, it's that marketing admissions sort of spin on things, but it's a great way to expose this population of students to community college and the benefits of community college. And then they take that information and bring it out into the world. And oftentimes we get referrals and we have people coming to us looking for access to community college that they may not have done before or taken part in.
So you can go, Jenna.
Okay, sorry. Just to know, so Gateway is 100% on the community college campus, so it's a little bit different than some of the other programs. So some of the challenges for curriculum for us are those science credits students need to graduate from high school. A lot of our students really aren't prepared to take like a 4-credit Bio 101 or a similar science. So what we do is we have written some high school level science classes. So even though the students are on our campus 100% of the time, they are taking sometimes high school level classes. We offer a robotics class and an introduction to STEM class that's for high school credit only, which has been really helpful. And another challenge of students being here 100% of the time is gym and health, which sometimes I think we forget about. So we work with our partner school district to offer health classes for the students and figure out how to do PE credits as well. We're a little bit heavier on health. So if you have a program that's 100% on your campus, it can be a little bit challenging to meet all those high school graduation requirements.
So we do it a little bit different in New Hampshire. For us, we have 3 versions of early college dual enrollment concurrent. We have our Running Start, which is our program that's in the high schools, taught by high school faculty who are also considered adjuncts for us. They have to fit certain criteria in order to teach, and they're using our curriculum from the college, but they're teaching it all in the high school. And right now, the cost for each of those Running Start courses, in order for it to be considered a college level, is $150, but that Governor Scholarship can cover that. We have early college, which is when the students who are in high school come to a class either online or on campus here. And this is White Mountains Community College, but it's the same for the 7 community colleges in New Hampshire. So they come on campus and it's at a discounted rate. So it's 50% of the cost of a normal class is what they pay. But again, that Governor Scholarship can also cover that. And then we have a third version, which is called eStart. In New Hampshire, we have VLAX, the Virtual Learning and Charter Academy School. Learning Charter Academy School. I'm always trying to remember what an acronym is. Where it's for students who are in high school or homeschooled, where they can take high school level classes, but also college level classes that are our classes completely online in partnership with VLAX, and those are free. So there's a couple different versions for doing the concurrent, the dual enrollment, and the early college. That is all run not out of the admissions office. It is done through academic affairs and Christy Grant, who does the educational partnerships and access, and our registrar. And it's a little bit different at each college in the system. They have some different titles for the coordinators, but it's generally run out of an office, not admissions. It's once they actually are applying to the college or applying for transfer that they come to us.
Great. I think we should, I apologize for not leading with that question, but that's really helpful. And I think we have a really good foundation, and a lot of people who are joining us on this webinar are related to transfer students. And so I know you all work the community college level, but some of you already touched on how you're connecting with transfer. Could any of you speak to how this relates to transfer and how your students either connect to other departments when they're interested in getting 4-year degrees later?
Sure. So a couple things. Specifically the grant, and I know Jillian mentioned it as well, CDAP. So that's that grant specifically in Massachusetts. If we're offering it, part of the grant is we really should only be offering mass transfer friendly courses. So that's important because obviously we want to encourage the students to, first and foremost, I want them to come to MassBay. But if not, they're going to have a transcript from MassBay where they can go to any of the other colleges in Massachusetts if it's a mass transfer course. What I typically tell the students in my experience is most of the private schools will also accept the course because it's usually a general education course that they're taking as long as they get a certain grade or higher, but to always check with that 4-year private school. But I think in terms of students, I think one of the questions later on at some point was how are students, what's the retention rate if they're coming to our own institution? That's something I need to investigate further, but the students that are coming to my institution, it's super easy because their transcript's already here. I spend time with my dual enrollment students actually at the first day of class. So even before they start taking class, I have them fill out transcript request forms so that I can process them for them to make sure they get a transcript sent home, they get a transcript that goes to the high school. But many times I get a lot of calls from students years later even. They're saying, oh, I'm going to transfer to a different 4-year school. I need that class that I took a couple years ago through dual enrollment. And my experience is they're able to take those courses and go. Obviously, there's always the exceptions. There's the nursing programs and the engineering things, etc. But for the most part, they're really taking the general education foundation courses that any school 2-year or 4-year needs for these students to graduate.
I've had similar experiences. You know, we have to follow similar guidelines, but the exceptions, the schools that potentially don't take credit or treat the student differently when they're applying once they're finished with dual enrollment, are very few. And we know who they are, and we try to counsel the student through that process. Again, we have transfer counselors that work really closely with students, help them make these plans early in the process, especially if they're students who are on our campus. Because we have so many traditional dual enrollment students who are also homeschooled, we may see them a lot earlier than students who have been taught at the high school through concurrent enrollment. So they're spending a lot of time with us, potentially even finishing entire associate degrees while they're still high school age students. So we tell them to start working with that transfer counselor even then. And sometimes they're confused because they feel like they're far away from that process or they're too young. But we really want them to start thinking about those career decisions, thinking about the 4-year school search process early on in their time here at dual enrollment, so that we can help guide them. Certainly those things change and they change their minds and we have to make adjustments. The experiences that I've had have been that students are pretty well, or they're pretty good at directing themselves through this process if they're here as a traditional dual enrollment student, because they've made that decision already to go through high school in a non-traditional path. So they have a little bit more self-motivation to go and reach out and ask questions and find the answers. The students that I think we need to do a better job with are the students that are at the high schools. I think we need to do some more partnering with the guidance departments and talking about how they can use those credits, and that's all in the works. That's the plans that we're formulating are how are we going to get in front of these masses of students and their parents and really communicate some of that transfer information to them early on so that they don't get penalized or take another course or a duplicate course when they get off to that 4-year school. So that's something that I know is really important to us right now as we transition to an early college designation.
Yeah, for us, we work with the University System of New Hampshire. There are 4 colleges that are considered the University System of New Hampshire, but we also work with any of the colleges in Maine, in New England, or anywhere, honestly. We can work with anyone. It depends on how accepting they are, and it does depend on the courses. Are they going into a program that has specific requirements, and this course may not match that? That's something we work with the guidance and the school counselors. Chrissy meets with them, academic affairs, I meet with them to talk them through about their options, and then we meet with the students as they come. So if they're coming as concurrent or dual enrollment students in high school, they're coming to us, they want to complete a semester, a year, a full 2-year associate's degree, and then transfer on to complete it a 4-year. We have a couple different options. We have a dual NH program called the New Hampshire Dual Admissions Program, where they can start with us, complete a 2-year associate's degree, and then transfer on to one of the 4 University System New Hampshires and complete their bachelor's degree. We have New Hampshire Transfer that does a similar, but with other different colleges. And when it comes to getting their transcripts, we talk them through that. If they're in the high school, they want to go on to a 4-year institution that's not with us, or they want to go to Massachusetts, we tell them how to get their transcript. We get them their transcript. We send it down to where it needs to go. So it really depends on working with each student individually, and also kind of changing a culture. For a long time, we were all just technical colleges. We weren't really seen as a good choice for students who wanted to go on to a 4-year bachelor's or even a master's program, and we've been changing that slowly but surely so that we have more students who are going straight from dual enrollment or dual concurrent to us and then on to something further, or stopping with us as we are where they want to go and they can complete their accreditation or their certificate or their degree, whatever it is they're looking for, and then kind of be done with school potentially, or continue on for something else.
So we have seen a little bit of a clunkier process at Gateway. So I'll be the downer a little bit, I guess, but I'll speak to that. So our population of students is that dropout population, that at-risk population, and I know a lot of the early college grants out there right now are targeting that population. So some of the challenges that we've come across is we're taking in students that might be credit-wise juniors or seniors in high school, but they've never paid attention to a word their guidance counselor has told them. They have a bunch of D's and F's on their transcripts, and they just have zero college knowledge. So that kind of motivated dual enrollment student that was mentioned earlier is really not this crowd. So then we have to play a lot of catch up with them. How do we get them all this information? How do you explain to them that even though you have a 4.0 college GPA, your high school grades before you came here are so poor that you're still going to have to continue at a community college because there's no way a four-year school is going to accept you with that cumulative GPA. So we deal with some of really like challenging transcripting, things like that. Students that maybe have a 0 point something prior to coming to Gateway, then do really awesome at QCC. Most of our students do stay here to finish an associate's degree, sometimes just because they want to, but a lot of times it's out of necessity. They don't often have the knowledge to know that even though you are a high school student with 30 college credits, you still have to apply as a freshman. They just kind of assume they're a transfer student, and then I'll get a call from a college like, I think they were supposed to apply as a freshman. Can you kind of go back to them and explain that to them a little further? So, you know, it's a little bit challenging with this population of students to kind of make up for the first 2 or 3 years of college workshops and stuff like that that they've missed because they weren't paying attention or they didn't care at that point, but now they care now, and trying to fill in a lot of those gaps.
That's a really great segue, Jenna, into the conversation that's been happening in the chat box about how these students are considered from the 4-year level, because what you just touched on is some colleges will say you are a freshman, you're a first-year student, and then some will say you're a transfer. And I know people have been talking, I know for Simmons' perspective, that's how we treat students. If a student has the college credit before completing a high school graduation, then we consider them a first-year student. I know that's not the case with every, and I don't know, I'm not expecting you all to be experts on this, but if you have any comments on what you've seen of how other institutions have considered students, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I've seen it all sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say, I've only seen dual enrollment students be able to apply as freshmen. I haven't seen anything else. So I think within our state system in Massachusetts, they treat them all like freshmen.
Yeah, within the state system, I think that they're flexible in the sense that they know our programs and they're comfortable with bringing students in whatever way is going to be beneficial for them. But what I see mostly is that they bring them in as freshmen. With the privates, I've seen a little variation. What Sydney was explaining is true. Oftentimes it's just freshmen with some advanced standing. I have seen some situations where private institutions will say, you know, we will transfer in your general education credit, but these, you know, a couple of business electives that you've taken or engineering courses that you've taken will not transfer in. We'll give you credit for them, but we'll not count them towards our core degree requirements. I've seen that happen. And I've seen a couple of very few situations where students are told these credits are still considered high school level because you did not take them post high school, which is unfortunate. But that's why we really push students to have those conversations with our transfer counselors early on in the process so that we can identify if this is a plan for you, if this is school you're really intent on going to, then this is the process. So it's that early information that's really critical to those students.
For us, it depends on the amount of credits. If it's just been a couple classes, then they're brand new freshmen. If we have students who've taken, and we've had students who through different high schools have taken 30 credits worth of college classes just as a running start student, then they would consider that a transfer.
Yeah, just like Jillian said, I'd have them speak with the transfer counselor, not only at the 2-year college, but where they want to go. You know, that's the ultimate decision maker. They're the ones who are going to treat them a certain way. And then some students get bummed out, especially the ones who are closer to having associates. They'll say, I want to be treated as a transfer. And then I put my financial aid hat on and I remind them that Sometimes it's better to be packaged as a freshman at a different school, especially a private school, because you could get more scholarship opportunities. So I try to focus on the positive. But it is a bummer when I see a homeschool student specifically who's already earned the associate, and I hear of schools that are not going to look at them as a transfer student because they've already gone through those. So that's a different population, but it's frustrating for the students and the families too. So the more information they get up front from the four-year school, because they're the ones who are going to drive the process and really tell them up front, or sometimes, to Jillian's point, not tell them up front what they're going to take and what they're not going to take.
Right.
Yeah, and so a clarification that I have based on one of the pre-submitted questions. I know this applies to Massachusetts, but so I understand correctly, if someone does take mass transfer courses, are they eligible or not eligible for anything associated with that, with mass transfer, or are they first year so they're not?
That's the rub. So I have our largest partner school, obviously, is UMass Lowell, and they've been fabulous at looking at each student individually and allowing them to, contact them, even if it's 2 years or a year before that actual transfer date, to really plan it out and have those conversations. But from what I've seen, they've been pretty willing to accept mass transfer benefits.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen the same thing. It's actually written in the newer program, the Commonwealth Commitment. It's written in the MOU that that dual enrollment students, their credits that they've been taken prior to joining the Commonwealth dual enrollment. Sorry, too many grants. The Commonwealth Commitment Program, that they can be part of that program even if they come in with a whole bunch of credits already to the community college and then eventually to the four-year school.
I think also, just as a note of clarity, and I see someone pointed this out in the chat also, is the schools are directing the students to apply as freshmen or first year students, but that doesn't mean that they're coming in with just freshman credit. They might come in as a first year student because that funnels them through the right orientation and gets them the right roommate, in terms of appropriateness, but that doesn't mean the school isn't taking their credit in, but they have to just go through that freshman process.
Great, that's really helpful. So my next question is, I'm seeking for some words of wisdom for individuals, maybe particularly that work at 4 years, so this could be my bias, but you work so on the ground with these students and you see such value in these programs. What advice do you have for receiving institutions on how they can honor this credit, support students through this process, and make transfer for them better?
I have a couple thoughts. One is I appreciate that the 4 years are now taking more time to, you're all here to understand who these students are and what the different programs are geared at doing. A lot of the programs and grants that we have, it's within our grant that we're trying to identify students at high schools who otherwise may not see themselves going to college, right? So they may not have the best grades in high school. Some of the grants have 2.5 requirements. Gateway is a totally different type of program, but we're trying to get students to see themselves. So for many students, this is an opportunity for them to, have a second chance in some cases, and that's great. But also remember that, when you get them, even if they have 24 credits or 32 credits, they're still 17 and 18 years old.
Right.
So even if, we understand that there are benefits of, having them go through the freshman first year process because they need to, learn about the things that they didn't get through our programs at your schools.
And I think just understanding a lot of our programs are cohorted, and so they get a lot of support services, especially when we're targeting this more at-risk population. We've put in a lot of man hours to get them through, and they've learned a lot and they've earned their grades. But sort of jumping into a four-year school and then losing all that support services is like, jumping into a bucket of cold water. That's a shock. And so I think looking beyond that transcript and seeing this story of this might be a 3.5, 4.0 student, but what can we really offer them at the other end? Because they probably still need a significant amount of support services. So making sure they're getting funneled to the right offices on campus.
I agree. There's a lot that the four-year universities just have been stepping up a lot, especially in New Hampshire with us, with the University System of New Hampshire and the New Hampshire Transfer Group that was working with just the privates, colleges and universities, that there's a lot more of an understanding of what these students who may be doing really well with the college level classes, but what they were doing prior to college level. And so understanding who these students are. And I had a student who took 42 credits worth of Running Start as a high school student. He came for us for a year, finished his associate's degree in just under a year, and then went on to Plymouth State University. And they were really involved from the get-go of understanding who this student was, what he was going to need. And they do have a special orientation for the what we call dual NH students, and just having something like that at all of the 4 years, who are working with students who are coming from high school, community college to a 4-year, I think would be really helpful.
Awesome, thank you. So as a reminder to everyone, we're welcome to accept any questions that you'd like to place in the chat box. And the next question that I have, I hope isn't too loaded of a question, but as we think about the landscape of these programs as an opportunity to give students access to college, there has been some perception that the goal is to target students at an access standpoint, but often maybe wealthier, more resource families are the ones taking advantage of these programs. And that could be that. I read an article recently, so this is not from my lived experience, but could you maybe dispel that myth, touch on that, or give any insight you have from your perspective?
We have students from all socioeconomic ability and background who are taking the dual enrollment. Like I said, that we have the Governor's Scholarship, which covers some of the classes. We have some of the high schools who pay for their students, that's within their budget. So we have students who are going to get a lot of financial aid once they go to college. We have students who may not get any. Their parents are very willing to pay full price for all their classes. We have students who from all walks of life, all backgrounds, from all areas, who want to go on to varying in various different degree programs. So I don't think this is a set of courses or a set of program, the dual enrollment or the concurrent or the Running Start or the early colleges for students who are coming from a higher socioeconomic, at least not in New Hampshire. That's not how it's going with us.
I think at Middlesex, we always struggle with being a two-campus institution, and one campus is incredibly urban, and the other is set in a suburban, somewhat affluent community. So, you know, we're always going to face that no matter what with any population, dual enrollment, traditional. So our dual enrollment programs, early college programs, span all of those demographics, just as you were saying, and we don't really differentiate in terms of what we provide for services. If a student comes in and they have tons of support, they're going to get that same experience as somebody coming in who's a first-generation low-income student. Certainly early college is designed to target students who, just like as with Jenna's program, students who may not have access to community college or college in general, or certainly not access to the pathways that we intend them to have access to in terms of transitioning into a 4-year program and how they can use these credits. So we're going to spend a lot of time having those conversations. I do think, again, we're discounting that tuition similarly, so that students, that message is out there. So students are being really, really savvy about how they plan their college expenses. And if they have listened, hopefully, to what we've been telling them, this is the way that they're going to save on that 4-year degree or potentially even higher level degree by maximizing the discounting that we're giving them now. So maybe that's because they have more support at home, and hopefully it's because we're doing the job that we're supposed to be doing in terms of communicating that message out in the high schools, regardless of socioeconomic background.
I agree with what everyone said on the panel already.
And I appreciate everyone answering that, because that wasn't necessarily my own personal opinion. That was just something in an article that I got recently. So I really appreciate you all touching and dispelling that myth, to recognize that the goal of your programs is to give everyone an opportunity to have access to college credit and experience. So thank you so much for that. Those are the majority of the questions that I had prepared. It seems like we don't have too many more in the chat box, but I wanted to welcome you all to provide any additional closing remarks that you want everyone to take away.
I have two quick things, Sydney, if you don't mind. The first is just, mostly for the four-year schools. Two things. Please know that when you see these classes on the high school transcript, you need to know that there is a supporting college transcript, official college transcript that supports it as well. So these classes are not dumbed down or changed or manipulated in any way, shape, or form because they're high school students. And the high schools know this. We spend a lot of time with the students explaining to them that this is a high school level course. So if we are offering an English or math class, these students needed to place into that class, whether the AccuPlacer or some other type of measure. In some cases, they have to have a certain high school GPA before they can even be considered. So these are real college level courses. And, if you're just seeing the high school transcript and it says, if you have, you got a B, you're not going to take that B. You're going to want the support of the college transcript, and the students should and will have those. So that's just my piece I want to say, because I've been doing this for a while, where some people just think, oh, it's a dumbed down version, if you will, of a college course offered on a high school campus, and that's absolutely not the truth.
No. And I would just piggyback on that and invite the four-year schools to come and talk to. It might not be necessarily admissions, but it might be our partnership areas that are doing a lot of this curriculum work. Come and talk to them, because they'll show you the curriculum and the work that's been done to align and make sure and ensure that these courses are the same. If not, more challenging, because they're getting more contact time with the students in high school than we might have in a college classroom. So keep in mind that the expectation, and as Lisa was saying, the prerequisites for students being in these programs are often quite high for a high school student. So I know that's not how all programs are structured, but at least at Middlesex. So I would just, if you want to, as a four-year institution, learn more and see if there's something that you need to do, because ultimately when these students do come to the four-year schools, they're probably more prepared than if they had just left high school. They've demonstrated their capability, and they've shown that they're capable of completing college level work. So that student's going to be an value add to your campus.
I would just echo what everybody else said. Don't be afraid to ask questions. All of us in early college are obviously very passionate about what we do. We really believe in our programs. So, if you ever have a question about a program, just we're a phone call away and always happy to answer questions. And if you do find yourself, I know with Gateway, we see a lot of kind of snap judgments on our program because students are dropouts or they're, at risk in some way. And their students are more than just their stories. They're, what they've overcome, and they're who they are now. And just keep an open mind when a program is targeting a specific population of students, because they've worked really, really hard to get where they are.
Yeah, for us, I agree with everyone about looking at the high school transcript as well as waiting for the college transcript, that we do have rigorous coursework that the students are doing. And I agree too that they are getting more contact hours within the high school at this type of program, because they are seeing them. I do know the students like it once they get out of high school that they only have to go to class once a week. But they are getting a lot more out of it at the high school level, and they are often a lot more prepared to go into a four-year university. Even if they've just been doing the dual enrollment and they just graduate high school, they're still aware of what they're stepping into, as opposed to just taking straight high school classes and then diving in, 160 miles away to a state school, or even just the state school next door. They're not always aware, because movies lie. And so they're not always aware of what college is going to bring them. And I think the dual enrollment and the concurrent and the early college really give them a good foundation for understanding. So having that understanding on the four-year part of what we're doing is very helpful.
I just want to add one quick thing. For the courses that are being taught at the high school, and if they're taught by a high school teacher, I think it's important for you all to know that those teachers have been vetted and hired by the colleges. So they're not just teaching that course because they taught English as a high school teacher. They have to be vetted by the dean of a department and go through the hiring process to be a MassBay faculty member teaching at that high school. So I think that's important to know too.
Excellent. Thank you all for your experience and everything you've shared today. I can say from my perspective, this has been extremely useful